Hi, friend. This episode is a little sneak peek into one of our Courage Lab coaching calls. And I was talking and teaching about the dynamic between the executive director and the development director and how they can successfully work well together. And we got into building a culture of feedback. And so that's the snippet that you're going to hear in this episode. And I just want to share a little bit about why feedback matters so much. And a big piece of it is feedback matters and it's imperative. It's essential if you want to grow. If you are looking to do more of the same, if your goals are flat year over year, basically, if you only really need to raise the same amount as you did last year, then you might not really need feedback as much. If you want to grow personally, if you want to grow as a fundraiser, and if your goals are growth goals, if you need to raise a lot more money, then you need to be giving a lot more feedback and receiving a lot more feedback. Feedback is essential if you want to get better. If you want to improve, you need feedback. You need to give it and you need to receive it. Consider the very best athletes in the world. Think about Kobe Bryant. Think about Michael Jordan. There were not a lot of people who could give them feedback because they were already so great when they were at the top of their game. But they paid for elite performance coaches to coach them privately one-on-one because they were the experts who could help them grow, even if it was by a slight edge of 1 to 2% changes or improvements, because they were looking to be the best they could possibly be. And they were eager for feedback, even though they were already better than everyone else. They were still investing in growing their skills and paying someone to look at the areas where they could make tweaks. What are the areas in which Michael Jordan could make changes? So think about that. Those who want to be the best don't see feedback as an indictment or an assault on their character or something that they need to take personally and is somehow indicative of their self-worth. It was a way for them to get better because they wanted to get better. And everyone needs to get better. Everyone has room to improve. Everybody. We all have stuff we need to get better at. We all have stuff we need to improve. So why does feedback matter? Because if you need to grow, if your goals are to grow, then feedback is essential. Enjoy this clip. There is a massive lack of accountability in the nonprofit world. If you do this, you will be amongst the top 1% of performers. The bar is that low. We're so nice that we actually allow our communities to suffer longer because we don't want to hurt our team's feelings. Do you hear what I'm saying? And it's the same thing with the wealthy donors. We don't want to offend them. And who ultimately pays the price? Not us. Our community, who we're raising money for to help them. They pay the price because we lack the guts. It's leadership. That's what leadership is. You go first. Leaders go first. They go first in honesty and accountability, not brutal honesty, not honesty to a 10. It doesn't mean you say everything that comes across your head. It's not helpful. But we need to get better at being accountable. This is the Courage Lab way. I'm telling you, this is the Julie way. This is the method. And there have been times where I've given people feedback and I thought, oh, I'm going to get fired. Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure, they're going to get rid of me. This is the end. And I have been fired, not because I gave feedback. That was tough to hear. But you have to decide who you are, ultimately. You have to decide who are you? That's what it's a question. It's a question of who are you and what are you really about? Are you here to win Miss Congeniality or are you here to make a difference? Which one? Because sometimes it comes down to this or that. It's not always black and white. Sometimes it is. And we lack the courage because we don't want to be perceived a certain way. It is about us. Yeah. Same thing with your board. Same thing with your board. So the code for success here is share feedback right away. Okay. I have a client, their goal is private client. Their goal is to raise 12 million annually, right? They have a whole development department. I coach the heads of the department and I'm like their co-department head. And I train and coach all of their major gifts officers, all of their team. And I asked the question, I said, they're frustrated that they're not getting the best out of their team. They're frustrated that their team is just a little too conservative, little too slow moving, lack urgency. They're not being bold enough. They're not being courageous enough. They're frustrated with, I know they have potential. They're just not, I'm not getting the best out of my team. What's the problem? This is common, right? And the very first question I ask is on a scale of 0 to 10, how honest are you with the people you're frustrated with? And they'll say, I'm usually like a 5 or a 6. Okay. So when are you like an 8 or a 9? And they'll think about it. And then they say, well, when we do performance reviews, which is once a year. Sound familiar? And we get real specific because we take the time to write down on a form and answer specific questions. And then this direct report finally has a clue of what's really going on. And in the meantime, the boss, the manager, has built up all of this frustration to the point that when they share it, that you can feel the irritation. They can't share it in a way that they want to. That's calm, cool, collected, kind, thoughtful. It's emotional because they've let it build up. Because most of the time, their honesty is at a 5 or a 6. They're not honest consistently with both, here's what you're doing well, and here's what needs to improve. They're not explicit. We have to be explicit. We have to be able to say, hey, this thing, you missed the mark. That's not it. This is not up to our standard. Here's why. Here's why this matters. We got to fix it, y'all. It's a huge problem. And we scare off talented people because we're chicken. Nobody wants to do a crappy job. Nobody wakes up thinking, can't wait to disappoint everyone, right? But we're so concerned with ourselves and our own comfort zone and our own perception, reputation, image, that we are not honest and we don't hold people accountable. And this should be a standard that we have, whether it's manager to direct report and it's horizontally. Someone who is your peer or someone who is even someone who's more junior should be able to give upward feedback and say, hey, you didn't do what you said you were going to do. You missed the deadline. You didn't communicate. This was unclear. I didn't understand that. I mean, we should be able to give each other feedback and freaking survive the day. It shouldn't be something that we need to like, oh, I've got to really think how am I going to say this? And oh, I got to plan and I got to put it on the calendar. It's got to be 2 weeks from now. And I got to do this huge, massive anticipatory buildup. And oh my gosh, no wonder we don't do it. It's a Tuesday. Just talk to your team member. We should be able to give immediate feedback and be clear. And then we actually stave off any emotional, it's now become this mountainous thing because we've let it build up over the course of time. And now it's blown out of proportion. Assume the best. Assume the best of everybody. I talk about this a lot. Y'all have heard it. I think you know what that means. Don't jump to conclusions. Don't fill in the blank. Ask questions. Assume the best intentions of everyone.